Here's what you missed on the Mike Brown Morning Show.
Celebrating what it really is that we celebrate. And they'll say happy holidays just so they won't have to say Merry Christmas. But whatever. So I meant to say happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you enjoyed your Thanksgiving. And these holiday seasons, don't ever take any moment for granted, because we can be gone in a blink of an eye. So don't ever forget to be thankful. Don't ever take any moment for granted. But I'm excited to be here this morning. We got a lot to talk about, as always. You know, I'm a little bit sad this morning. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here, happy to be alive. But the way of the world, the way things are going makes me a little sad sometimes. And those that are listening to me right now on the radio, we're going to go live. This is the plan. We plan on going live on Facebook as we are on the radio at the same time today. Something that I want to discuss. It's an unpopular subject, but nobody is talking about it in a way that it needs to be talked about. You know, I'm all for having open conversations, and but you know what? As believers in Jesus Christ, we're getting a little bit too accepting of things. We're getting a little bit well, I guess that's the best way for me to say it right now. We're just a little bit too accepting of certain things. Now, are we perfect? Absolutely not. Is anybody perfect? Nobody that's walking this earth right now? No. But do we strive for perfection? A better way to say it is that we strive to be pleasing in God's sight, and we strive to be like Jesus was when he walked this earth. That's what we're striving for. That's the goal. So we are not perfect. We absolutely live in this human flesh, and there is no good thing that dwells in this human flesh. However, in our strive, it's not our job to judge anybody. No. But is it our job to hold certain standards? It absolutely is. We don't judge, but there is a certain way that we have to move. There's a certain discipline that we have to have. And we can't get too far away from what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. It may be something that I want to do. It may feel good. It may look just not. Don't start to sound some type of warning alarm. Then we risk our generations coming behind us. We risk what our future is going to look like. And although the Bible is being revealed, it's going to be revealed. Although history repeats itself, we have a responsibility to ourselves, to our children, to our children's children. It's okay to be normal. Now, if you happen to find yourself in an abnormal state, and I know that's a blanket subject, but when we get to talking about what we're going to talk about, you'll understand it better. But if you find yourself in abnormality, I think I can say that, then you have to find your way back to what the parameters of normal are. Okay? So I know you don't understand where I'm coming from right now. So I'm going to leave it like that for right now. I'm going to leave it a blanket statement because I want all of you to join me on Facebook Live probably in the next hour. It's bothering me. I'll get to it. But right first, I want to talk about this. So last week in the barbershop, we were talking about college and how most of the people in the shop was like, yeah, I think I said it. I'm not only am I the controversial guy here on the radio, but I'm also the controversy person at the barbershop as well. So I said Let me try to remember exactly how I said this. I might paraphrase what I said. I didn't use the word scam, but it was something along those lines. And to qualify my statement, what I was really trying to say and what I really was trying to get over to who was listening to me is that in these days and times, if you are not going into a focus driven career, something like medicine, law, education, engineering, something as focused learning as those subjects, then college is, again, I didn't use the word scam, but for lack of the word I did use, let me just say, it is not of use these days like it was in days prior to now. Now, these are my words. You don't have to agree with me, and I'm not even expecting a lot of people to agree with me, but this is just how I feel. Now, again, I don't want a doctor that ain't been to medical school. That don't make no sense. I don't want a lawyer that ain't been to law school. That would be dumb. I don't want an engineer building on stuff or coming up with the plans to build something and they don't have a scientific knowledge of how the thing goes. But now, if you find yourself working in a random cubicle making $50,000, maybe $60,000 a year, and it costs you anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 to get your degree, when it is the person in the next cubicle is making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, maybe, and it costs them nothing because they didn't go to college, then you, my friend, are at a disadvantage because your return on investment is not paying off. Because you probably, now this is not everybody. Some people went to college absolutely free, but the majority of people in America had to pay, and they paid by way of student loans. So if you are that person making 50, and I'm being real generous when I say $50,000 or $60,000 a year, and you're sitting next to that person that's making $50,000 or $60,000 a year with no college education, and they don't have student loans, you are in more of a disadvantage as it relates to income than that person, because you have those student loans to pay. Whether they are a deferment or not, or whether you're paying them regularly or not, you are still in a disadvantage because your yearly income, let's just say you were married and you lived off your spouse's income. It would take you all year to pay your student loans if they were $50,000. But if you make $50,000 and you accumulated $100,000 in student loans plus interest, then it's going to take you 2 years to pay your student loans off. But that is unrealistic because it takes every bit of two incomes in today's America for a family to make it. And so what led me to make the statement that I made was the fact that from experience. Now, I went to college. I didn't graduate. I shouldn't have gone because it had no value for me. And I knew that. But what do you do as an 18-year-old when your parents say you going to college? Chances are you probably going to go because you have not identified who you are yet. So now some people, they know. Some people grown. Even if they're not grown for real, they have a certain mentality that's unstoppable at 18 years old. I wasn't there yet. My parents still had a major influence. So I thought that maybe if I went, I was going to finish. But no, it was not in my heart to do. Now, am I saying don't go to college? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is have a focus-driven path if that's what you're going to do. That's all I'm saying. Doctor, lawyer, teacher, you got to go to college. You don't have a choice. As a matter of fact, you already know that. You know you got to go to college. If you don't find yourself working in those fields, if you do go to college, don't settle for anything less than what you studied to go for, because otherwise it was a waste of money and you will not see a return on your investment. So what led me to say what it is I said is the reason is because here in America, it's built on people following that system. See, America thrives, or it thrived, it thrived on the poor and the middle class. Those, and let me just keep going. That's who stimulates the economy. Those are the consumers in America. Well, you'll also find in that same class of people, those are the ones that when they go to college, more than likely, they have to take out student loans because they don't have a parent that can write a $10,000 check every semester. There is not a job that they can work to pay off that much money and them still go to school full time. And there are only so many scholarships that are given, whether they be academic or for sports or music. There are only so many to go around. So the people that finds themselves with those loans are the people that fit in the class of poor or middle class. Now, here's the problem. And as we've been reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we've been able to see it a little more clearly. But the poor and the middle class already are at a disadvantage because, well, the lack of financial education, that's one thing. And what does that include? Knowing how to generate income producing assets, or how to acquire income producing assets. That's a certain discipline that they do not teach in school, but is very valuable for one's life. See, just because you find yourself as poor or middle class right now doesn't mean that you always have to stay that way. But what you do have to do is seek out a financial education, because if you don't, then you can make more money, but more money will not be the answer to the problem. It won't solve anything if you do not educate yourself on what to do with said money. So a lot of people call college, or they say that college is an investment. Well, what do investments do? After a while, they're supposed to start paying you back. So while it is, let's use the same example that I used earlier. While it is your education these days, it's probably going to cost you anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000 if you go to university. I'm going to use those numbers. I could be off. I don't know, because I'm not really interested. Hadn't been in a long while. But those are the numbers I'm going to use. If you make, and again, I'm being generous with these salaries because I know entry level positions for people that have 4-year degrees, but let's just be generous and say you make $60,000 a year after you graduate a 4-year degree. Okay. Your investment is $100,000. You make $60,000 a year. They're going to set you up on some monthly payments. I don't know what those payments are going to be. But you're not seeing any return on your investment right now because you're in debt as it relates to your investment. You are already at a disadvantage because you make less than what it is your debts are. So it's going to take you, again, I said, if you had a person to pay all of your bills, it's still going to take you 2 years. If you can be that disciplined to pay your loans off, which means that you're 2 years in. Now, that's a perfect situation, but we know it don't go like that. So now you find yourself paying every month, whatever it is, $100, $200. I don't know how much student loans cost. Okay, but whatever it is, you find yourself paying it every month, or it's in deferment and it's just sitting there on your credit looking horrible. Either way, in the real world, it's going to take you longer than 2 years because why? You're going to need to dip into that $60,000 for, here's the biggest chunk, rent. You probably couldn't afford to purchase a car outright. So now you digging in that $60,000 again for a car in which you at least paid $20,000 for because you feel like you deserved a nice car because you just spent 4 years in college and you earned it. So now you're paying at least $350 a month for that car plus the insurance that it costs for that car. Then you have to consider what you're going to eat. All of those things take away from your income, not to mention taxes, because you work for somebody, and this is how America is set up. That's why the middle class and the poor are at a disadvantage because they take your taxes first. So now, whatever you're left with, you're going to try to save it, but then you're probably going to go spend it on something because you've been so overwhelmed with paying bills. You're going to feel like doing something for yourself. Long story short, those student loans are still sitting there. So your return on investment is going to take a long time. While it is, if we generate assets, then that wouldn't look so bad because we could pay those student loans off. And now if you consider college an investment, then you can see a return on your investment because that means now the money that you make at your job, because you went to college for this job, that now becomes profit if you look at college as an investment. I said all that to say that, what's her name that ran for president? Elizabeth Warren. She's working on a bill to not eliminate, but to pay student loans off up to $50,000. Now, that sounds like a great idea. Everything Democrats do sound like a great idea until you break it down. To pay $50,000 off, and let's just say all you got is $50,000 in student loans. If they pay that off, that answers your financial problems. You sweet. Even if you owe $100,000 and they pay $50,000, that's great. But now here's the problem though. Here are some potential problems with that. Some people are going to feel compelled to go back and get more money because they off the hook for $50,000. What does that do? That puts you in the same position that you were in. So now that's one reason why it's not a great idea. Here's another reason. College education, outside of those pillars that I gave you, outside of medicine, outside of law, outside of education, outside of technology and not even technology, because you don't need college for that, but engineering and all those things. Outside of that, college is useful for those things. I gotta stress that. I have to stress that. But now, outside of those things, The only value that a college education holds is how much it costs. I'm gonna say that again. It's only valuable because you have to pay for it. Now, if they forgive your student loans $50,000 or whatever, that's just the start of it. Now, I mean, you even see it now that in some places you can go to community college for absolutely free. And so you already come to university at an advantage. But what does that mean? To me, that means if the cost of education goes down, then now the value of education goes down. So you would have spent 4 or 5 years somewhere learning something. And if it's not focused, like those things that I learned before, if it's just something for you to just get a degree, you would have spent 4, maybe 5 years for something that's already going to be less valuable when you graduate. While in those 4 or 5 years, with as much knowledge that's available to us these days, what could you have accomplished? Again, I am not discouraging anybody from college. I'm just trying to show you what the system is not going to show you. I want you to see all sides of a thing. Don't just be focused on one thing and you don't weigh all of the options. You know, sometimes I will watch Shark Tank. It's one of my favorite shows. And a lot of times you get people to come to the carpet and you'll have some of the investors say, "Where'd you go to school?" A lot of people they have phenomenal educational backgrounds. A lot of times what they're doing has nothing to do with what their education is in. A lot of times it does. And it's beneficial because they may be doing something in the science space and they may have a degree in some type of science and it was very beneficial for them. But now you have some people that come to the carpet with $1 million idea and the panel will ask them, "Well, where'd you go to school?" I promise you, over a dozen occasions, I've heard people say YouTube University, Google Institute, meaning that the information that they've learned was free right there on the internet. Now, so what am I saying? As much information that we are exposed to in 2020, the cost of education has no choice but to go down. But in some cases, we see it going up. But the fact of the matter is, if the cost goes down, then it loses its value. Even if you've already graduated, if the cost of education goes down, the education itself loses its value, especially if you are not functioning in the field that you spent your time and your money to function in. Let me give you my disclaimer again. I'm not discouraging anybody from going to college. I want you to see how you can become a part of a system that wants you stuck for that period of time, that wants you to owe money on interest for years to come for something that you studied that you're not even working in. So I brought again is to highlight this article about Elizabeth Warren's efforts here. So, of course, I'm not going to read this whole article. It's in the Wall Street Journal. There is a part of it I would like to read. Let me see where that is. I thought it was. Let me just read. I'm going to start reading. Let's see. Okay, I'll start here. Some would counter that forgiveness will help unburden Americans weighed down by student debt. But note which Americans will get most of the benefit. As the Brookings Institution's Adam Looney found last year, Ms. Warren's proposal to forgive up to $50,000 of debt for Americans whose households earn less than $250,000 a year is regressive. Under her plan, the bottom 60% of households would receive only 30% of the benefit. That's because college graduates, even the ones who went into debt to pay for their degrees, tend to be relatively affluent. See that a whole demographic is already cut off from that, because most of the people that I know are not affluent. But let me keep going. Were the government to forgive $50,000 for all Americans without Miss Warren's $250,000 cap, the result would be to transfer even more money to wealthier Americans. Because you do have some rich people that have taken out student loans, and they don't need the forgiveness because they can pay their student loans, because while it is, their student loans might be $100,000, they might make $100,000 a year, or $150,000 a year, or $200,000. A blanket forgiveness of student debt would be a bailout, delivering economic benefits to the upper class while doing nothing for the trucker in Toledo, Ohio, or the Waffle House waitress in Atlanta. It would increase divisions between the college educated and the rest of the country without reforming the student lending system or bloating universities that created the debt problem. That's all I'm going to read. The fact of the matter is, look, we have so many ways these days to be affluent, for lack of a better word. We have so many ways these days to earn significant income. Education is available in many places, in many ways. I look at the generation prior to the generation that I'm in, which would be my parents, and around in that 10 years before or after, I suppose. And then I look at the generation before them, which would be my grandparents, with 10 years or so on either side of them. Now, while it is the people in my grandparents' generation, they fought for education. They instilled in their children, you must go to college. You must get a degree. And you know what? They did. And you know what I don't hear a lot of? I don't hear a lot of our parents. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I don't hear a lot about our parents, and a lot of them in that age group, they went to college. They got degrees. They're teachers. They're working professionals. Most of them, a lot of them are retired by now, but or getting ready to. But you don't hear a lot about their student loans. I don't even think that student loans. I don't know when colleges started offering this program and when the government started getting involved. Maybe our parents were before that time, but you don't hear a lot about them having to pay student loans. But after that, my generation, a little bit older, a little bit younger, that's all you hear. But getting back to the grandparents, though, they instilled education in those children, and it worked. It was great for them. And what it did was make America greedy. It made it they fit into what America wanted them to be, because they were now able to stimulate the economy in a way that America hadn't seen before. But I'm gonna make somebody mad right here. They gained something, but they also lost something. What did they lose? This is going to be hard for y'all to hear because you're probably not going to agree with me right off. They lost their freedom. See, while it is that their parents, a lot of their parents, maybe they weren't financially affluent, but they had a freedom that allowed them to raise their children, to send them to school without student loans, whatever they had to do. I mean, if mama had to clean somebody's house, if daddy had to work at the factory and get off of work and work another job, they did what they had to do. Them children had somewhere to live. They had something to eat, and they paid for them to go to school. What I'm saying is the entrepreneurial spirit, let's not allow a system to let that spirit die in us. If we're going to go the traditional educational route, I applaud you. Do it. But don't let that entrepreneurial spirit die. And right here, I got to give a shout out to my little sister, my baby sister. She's the most educated 27 or 28-year-old that I know. I mean, she got 3, maybe 4 degrees, and she make bread. And now here's what I want to point out about her. Her education was focused. She knew that what she wanted to do was in education. And guess what that baby does? She works in education. But not only that, she went to the top. Like, she's almost a doctor in education. But this is what I have to respect most. She's still trying to figure it out, but she has not let that take away her entrepreneurial spirit. See, we always want to be in a position that if they fire me, it's all right because I got assets. I didn't need your job. I wanted it because it was my passion. But if you fire me, I can make another job. I don't need your job. All right, I'm going to leave that there. That's all. That's the point I wanted to get to right there. Don't lose your freedom. Don't let any system allow you to not be free. Stay free. I'll be back. It's the Mike Brown Morning Show. You know where it is. It's on the Urban Uplift. Be right back.
Wake up. Right here. The Mike Brown Morning Show.
Wake up, baby, won't you wake up? Hit it in the morning.
Heard weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Urban Uplift.
Urban Uplift. And at the beginning of the show, I told you that we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're live here on the radio. We're also live here on Facebook. And the reason that is because I want to start a conversation. Now, I know I don't have many. Y'all know I say this all the time because it's true. I don't have many friends on social media. That's a whole thing for me. I know it's important, but I need somebody to do it for me, I suppose. But I want to get into this conversation that we really, really need to have. Oh, good afternoon, Pastor. It's afternoon there. Good afternoon, Pastor Lamont from London. Okay, so you see what the title says. I forgot exactly how I said it in the title. How can I go back and look at my title? Anyways, it's something about, let me go and look at my title. Don't talk about me, y'all. But I want to talk about sin. That's really what I want to talk about. And the reason that I want to talk about this, and I want it to be a conversation, I would love for somebody to chime in as I'm talking. If you want to come on camera, if you want to call in, we can do all that. We got the next hour. I might have to if you're listening on the radio, I'm gonna stop here a couple of times to play some music for you, but I want to stay on this Facebook conversation as long as I need to. Okay. Yes, Kevin, you know what the topic pertains to, and that's what I want to talk about. Mr. Duffy, how you doing, sir? We cannot be, thank you, Pastor Lamont. We cannot be comfortable with sin. We cannot be comfortable with sin. Thank you, Brittany. Let's talk about it. Look, the fact of the matter is all have sinned and come short of God's glory. And we know that we were placed here to give God glory. We also know that sin separates us from God. And if we are separated from God, we cannot give him glory. We are not in a position for him to get glory out of our lives because we have not separated ourselves from sin. And we have to separate ourselves from sin. So the reason, and y'all know I don't do this. I don't come on social media, firstly, if I can say that. But I definitely don't come on here to preach. However, and I'm not preaching today. I'm just not being silent. We have, as believers, we have an obligation to not be silent. We also have an obligation to have standards, especially as it relates to our Christian walk. Are we supposed to be walking around judging and being self-righteous and looking down on people? No, we're not. But are we supposed to strive to live a sin-free life and not be ashamed for the strive? Yes, those things are true. That's how we should find ourselves. That should be our position. So the reason I'm here like I am this morning is because my heart is heavy because of where we find ourselves in this time. And I'm not so much concerned with the world because we know that's just the way of the world. That's how it's going to be. I mean, the Bible is fulfilling itself. And again, I'm going to read a couple of scriptures, but I'm not here to preach. So so don't even consider this a theological conversation. This is more of what our responsibility is as believers. And I'm going to leave it at that. We're not going to get into no Bible battle. None of that. But we know what it is that we believe. And we are not going to be ashamed of what it is that we believe. Now, let me get back. I'm going to try to stay on topic here. My heart is heavy because, again, not because the way of the world, but it's the believer's acceptance of what is going on as it relates to the world. And silence is, I forget, it's a certain way to say that, but silence can be perceived as acceptance. While it is that we're being silent about things, people can perceive that as us being accepting. So while it is we are to show the love of Jesus Christ, we still have a responsibility to show what right living looks like, or what striving to live right looks like. I want you to know that God does not make mistakes. What God did, how he did it, is how it's to be. And no matter how much this world may change, no matter how much people say they've evolved into certain things or certain beliefs, I want you to know that God doesn't change. When he made us, he knew exactly what he was doing. He doesn't need there to be a correction in what he's done, because he knew exactly what he was doing. Now, as I continue to talk, I want you to know that I'm not here to drag anybody. I'm not here to talk about anybody in a negative way. Now, I'm really debating on whether or not I'll say names, because it's not my job to, how can I say, to bring light to someone else's shortcomings. That's not what I'm here for. Those of you that listen to me every day here on the Urban Uplift, you know that's not what we do here. We don't drag people. We don't even talk about people like that. We may get into some governmental issues and, talk politics and things of that nature. But we don't talk about people. We don't glory in people's struggles. We don't do that. But we are here today to talk about us not being comfortable with sin. And sin, like we said, is anything that separates us from God. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of things. That's why we have to find ourselves in the face, at the feet of Jesus every day, asking for forgiveness, because it's so easy to fall in sin. Hey, Carla. What up, J-Mo? It's so easy to fall in sin. That's why we have to die daily. That's why we have to stay in relationship with Jesus Christ, because you can find yourself in sin. That's point blank. Nobody is above. Nobody that's walking this earth. What's up, Shakira? Is above. Hey, Miss Darlene. Nobody that's walking this earth is above sin. I want you to understand that. However, Jesus died for the sins of the world. So we have an advocate with the Father, which is Jesus Christ, who can and will forgive all of our sins. Hey, Tanya. But I do understand, though, that for some of us, we have to get that. Some of us don't get that. We have to. That's an understanding that we have to have. That we have to be forgiven our sins. But in order to be forgiven, we have to admit that we have sinned so that we can ask for forgiveness. And then, what's up, Woody? Some of us may be like Nicodemus, and we may have a partial understanding, but we need the extra knowledge that Jesus gave to Nicodemus when he said, you must be born again. Now, if we look at that example of being born again, whatever our sin is, if we're born again, then that addresses our sin. I'm not trying to be real deep. I'm just saying that we cannot be comfortable in sin, with sin. What's happening is we as believers are seeing things happen, and it's almost like we're getting desensitized. What's up, Jonathan? we're getting desensitized because things are becoming normalized. And it's not enough people talking about it to counter the normality of it. No sin is greater than the other sin. I want us to understand that. There is no sin greater than the other. To avoid me getting into this deep theological conversation that I told you that I did not want to get into, because that's not what I'm here for, but I do have to highlight a couple of passages of scripture to qualify what it is I'm saying. This is tough, y'all. I don't do this. This is unpopular, but I have to do it because we have to say something. We have to have something to say to counter the culture, or what is becoming or trying to become the culture, especially as it relates to the church. We have to protect what we believe. If we do not, what's up, Cherise? If we do not, then that thing can get away from us. And we can't afford for that to happen. This generation, my generation, millennials, whatever you want to call us, whatever, anybody that's, I don't know what the ages are, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say from 18 to 40. There is a standard that we have to go and grab and hold on to. Now, while it may not look like what it looked like for our parents and our grandparents, there are some fundamental truths that we have to hold on to. And I don't care how popular something becomes. I don't care how silent people become about a certain topic or subject. We cannot afford not to say something. We may be unpopular. And isn't it something how what's normal now is not normal? How when you are, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to stay with normal, then now you've somehow become the outcast or a part of the outcast. But I want you to be encouraged and let you know, no, you right where you need to be. You right where you should be. We have to come to an understanding that right is right and wrong is wrong. No matter how good it feels, no matter how bad I may want it, right is right, wrong is wrong, and sin is sin. And I can't allow sin to separate me from God. While I'm not here to be the sin police, I still have a responsibility to speak up, because there are those that are behind me. There are those that are looking at me. And while I may not be speaking to thousands of people right now, I believe that this voice has some influence. And I want you to know that I'm not going to be silent. I'm not here to get into a fight, to get into a war. I just feel like there is another side to the story. And if everybody can be comfortable in their truth, we have to be comfortable in our truth. I still don't feel released to say names right now, but I feel like as I continue to talk, you'll probably know why this came up like it came up today. Now, I can say names. I just don't feel the release to say it because I'm not telling something that's not already known. I just don't feel like saying it right now. I don't feel like I should at this moment. If you say it in the comments, or then you say it. That's on. It doesn't matter because it's public knowledge. So let me just read. Remember, I told you God doesn't make mistakes. He knew exactly what he was doing. If you have your Bibles, and I'm not preaching, I'm just saying sometimes you want to look at what's being said because you don't want just somebody saying something to you that ain't in the Bible. Okay, what's up, Pastor Lee? Okay, Genesis 1, 26 through the 28th verse. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, here it is. What's up, Pastor in Ingwe? Shanta, what's going on? And yes, Nene, I'm going to stay led in Jesus' name. Okay. Verse 27. So God created man in his image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Now here it is. Verse 28. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. And it goes on, but I want to just stop there. I want to talk about this first clause of verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Minister Brian, how you doing, sir? Hey, Zasha. My wife is here. Marsha. Okay. Let me read it again because I wanted to acknowledge those that have just joined. Genesis 1:28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Now, God doesn't make mistakes. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew how he wanted it done. He made man. He made woman. He then told them, the man and the woman, to be fruitful and to multiply. And then he said, through them to replenish the earth. So, my friends, if it were not for a male and a female, Michael would not be able to sit here and talk to you right now. What's up, Jocelyn? If it were not for a male and a female, you would not be able to listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth right now. So what am I saying? In order for human life to continue, in order for God's creation, as it relates to human, as it relates to any living creature, in order for it to be replenished, there has to be a male. There has to be a female. In order, Dr. Stringer, what's up, man? In order to replenish, there has to be a seed. Has to be, and I'm not real scientific, so excuse me how I say it. But you get what I'm saying. There has to be a seed. There has to be an egg. God was very plain. He does not make mistakes. We can't imply anything else. He was very clear. He said, now let us make man in our image. Let's make male and female. Then he told them, the male and the female, now y'all two, you male and you female, be fruitful and multiply and replenish. That means do it over and over and over again and over and over again. Now, what's up, Sam? That is the only way, male and female. That's right. Now, truth is offensive. I know that I'm offending somebody right now. I know that I am. And but I got to keep going. So if you're listening on the Urban Uplift, I'll make up for this time when the show goes off. I'm going to play some jam and gospel tunes. But I want everybody to hear this all at the same time. So some may be offended by what it is I just said, but this is not just my opinion. This is the word of God. He said, be fruitful and multiply. That's God's plan. We can't change his plan because of how we feel and because of what we want to do. What's up, Kendarius? Kendarius said, note that he said replenish the earth, not plenish the earth, meaning he already had the system in place for how we were to replenish the earth. Our problem is we are trying to replenish the earth by creating our own way of doing. Yes, it has to be God's way. Otherwise, it won't last. And thank you, Kendarius. This is why I'm here this morning, folks, because my heart is heavy because the generation that we are a part of, if something becomes cool or if it's a fad, our generation, we will sacrifice what it is we know is right to be a part of the in crowd. And we just can't afford to do that. See, while it is we are not the sin police, we still have to have something to say to counter what it is this culture is becoming. It's our responsibility. Yes, it's unpopular. And I guess I'm the right person for it because I don't really care. I'm not going to be influenced by your styles, your fashions, I'm not. So let me keep going. Don't want this to sound like an attack, but we have to have something to say. I don't hear enough people with a platform or a voice. I hear a lot of people talking. I hear a lot of people saying stuff, but it's not the right stuff. It's not a strong enough position on where we should be. And it breaks my heart because can you imagine if we'd grown up that way? What the course of what I would be saying, what my monologue would be right now if I'd grown up that way without a standard, without a reminder that said, hey, you might like this. This may feel good to you, but this is sin. Remember, God don't like sin. And it's very fundamental. We don't have to get real deep about it. Does sin exist? It does. Can we be forgiven of sin? Yes. Can we live a lifestyle that discourages sin? Yes. Will Jesus forgive us of our sins? Yes. Can we be born again? Yes. So there are all kinds of contingency plans for sin. While sin does exist, we can still live and strive to live a sin-free life. So, and this is where we get stuck a lot of times with people that find themselves in sin. But more than that, I want to say alternative lifestyles. While that is sin too, but let me just kind of focus in on that a little bit more. See, people with alternative lifestyles sometimes feel like it's a bashing or it's a ridicule or a coming against from us to them, or a believer to a person, or a person that's striving not to live in sin, and a person that finds themselves in the thick of it. They feel like they're being bashed, but that's because the truth offends. So God didn't make any mistakes. Does sin exist? It does. Do we have to live in sin? No, we don't. So no sin is greater than the other. That's true. So while it is that you may be a liar, that's a sin. While it is the other person may be a thief, then you're in sin. If you may be a fornicator, then my friend, I love you, but you're in sin. While it is you may be an adulterer, you're in sin. What's up, Ed? While it is you may be an idolater, you are in sin. So there's no sin greater than the other sin. And I know that I may sound repetitive, but it bears saying again, sin is what separates us from God, no matter what sin it is. So if you find yourself in an alternative lifestyle, hear me today. All sin is sin. It's not I'm holding a flashlight to your sin because your sin is greater than my sin. No, it's not true. All sin is sin. Now, I understand that people find themselves in different situations for different reasons. Now, I'm just going to be real. If this is too much, I'm sorry. And if you got children listening and I'm saying too much, I'm sorry. But I got to navigate through this. If you are, and I was going to try to be politically correct. Listen, that's time out for that. I understand it. I get it, but I'm saying it as it comes. If you are homosexual, understand, I don't hate you. None of us hate you. If there is a believer that you come across that hates you because you're homosexual, then they got a whole nother problem. And they don't speak for believers, because that's not the way that we walk in love. I can't hate you and love God. And if I don't love God, then I'm not a believer, because I'm not keeping his commandments. So understand that. So now, with that being said, if you are homosexual or lesbian or in an alternative lifestyle, if a person says they're a believer and they hate you, don't hold it against all the rest of us because of that person or that group of people, because they ain't got it right. Okay? Because while it is that they hate you for your sin, there is a sin that they've been forgiven for as well. Now, while it is I love you, if you're homosexual, if you are lesbian, I love you. I also love you if you're a liar. I love you if you're a cheater. I love you if you find yourself in adultery. I love you if you're a fornicator. I have to love you. And I love you. Now, I'm speaking for believers that want to be right. We love you. The truth of the matter is, I need somebody to love me. And if you be honest, you need somebody to love you. Because you don't always make it. You don't always make the mark. What's up, Jonathan? All right. So let's look at John. Let's look at St. John, the 2nd chapter. And let's start at, the 8th chapter. It's John, the 8th chapter. We're going to start at the 2nd verse. It says, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him and sat down and taught them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? So now, that's right, Tommy. What's going on? In the very act. So, what's up, Jasmine? Not only was she caught in adultery, but they had hard evidence. And they brought her to Jesus, and they said, Moses taught us that this is an offense that a person can be stoned for. Now, a whole nother, I could really get into a preachment, for lack of a better word, right here, because I could say, why is it then that they brought her to Jesus? But I'm not going there. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to read it again. Verse 4, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned, but what sayest thou? Verse 6, this they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. We don't know what he wrote, but he ignored them. Verse 7,
So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, this is powerful. He said, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. That bears reading again. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus is lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, now listen, he said, okay, so y'all brought her here. Okay, she's here. She's sinned. Okay. Y'all supposed to stone her, but you didn't. You brought her to me. Okay. Try and see what I'm going to say. Okay. So now, how about this? Any one of you that don't have any sin, feel free to throw the first stone. I'm giving you permission. If you don't have sin, then cast a stone at her right now. You be the first one. They all left. Verse 10, when Jesus had lifted up himself and said and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, woman, where are those thine accusers? Where did they go? Hath no man condemned thee? In other words, I thought they said they brought you here because you was caught in adultery, and then I told them to cast a stone if they hadn't been in sin. They don't still feel like you should be stoned? You shouldn't still be condemned for what you did? Verse 11, she said, no man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, neither do I condemn thee. Ooh. Neither do I condemn thee. But listen to what he said. Go and sin no more. So this is for everybody that feels like, because I'm not doing this and they are doing this, then I'm good. While it is that I may lie, but I'm not gay, or I may lie, but I'm not an adulterer. I may lie, but I'm not a fornicator. Or I like what you said, Tommy. Somebody needs to drop them rocks and get to stepping. Because the truth of the matter is, nobody could cast a stone. Because your sin wasn't her sin, but obviously you had sin. Now, while it is Jesus was compassionate to the woman, and he showed her, he used this example to show her, hey, while you were in sin, don't let all these other people fool you and to think that they not either. But this is what I want you to do. I don't condemn you. In other words, I forgive you. This is what I need from you. Go and sin no more. In other words, you don't leave here and go back where you were doing what it is you were doing. Don't leave here and say, whew, I dodged that one. Now I can get back in to do, no, he said, go and sin no more. Nene says Jesus forgave the sin, but also instructed her not to do it anymore. That's right. And so Jesus, our Savior, the one that died for our sins, had enough compassion not to condemn the woman. Not only that, he showed her that they got sin too. So you get up, watch this, stop crying. You all right? Don't do it no more now. Don't you do it again. So what am I saying? Brandon says he forgave the sin with the expectation of change. I'll take that. He said, hey, go. Brandon is on here trying to preach this morning. But he said, go and sin no more. Now, so this is what I want to say to everybody. God doesn't make mistakes. He knows exactly what he meant. He acknowledged her sin, so we know it was sin. But the one who can, will, and did handle her. Okay. Yeah. That's right. Jesus. He's the only one qualified to forgive sin. And he didn't hold her to the standards that they thought that she should have been held to. But now this is the part that I really want to highlight though. Jesus didn't say to her, see, look, they sin too, and left and just said, all right. No, he said, see, look, they got sin too. Where they go? They all gone. But he had an intimate moment with her after that and said, now go and sin no more. So here's what I want to say to everybody this morning. We are not here to condemn people and to point out sins and to be the sin counter or the sin police. No, that's not what we're here for. No. But what we will do and what we have a responsibility to do is what Jesus did. While it is he was compassionate and he forgave her, he still held her accountable in that when he said, go and sin no more. In other words, kind of what Brandon just said, you have to change. You cannot continue to do what it is you were doing. So I started this whole monologue. It can become dialogue if somebody wants to come on. We can talk back and forth about it. But I started all this to say, look, as believers, we still have to stand for something. We cannot allow the culture and what it is becoming to dumb down what it is we believe. While I love you, while I understand that there's no sin greater than the other, while I'm not pointing out your sin and hiding mine, what I am saying is, my sister, my brother, my friend, go and sin no more. Again, it's heavy on me because this world is out of control and we've allowed it to seep into our community of believers. Now, things happen. People sometimes are raped, molested, all kind of matter of just wrongdoing that forces a person to be in a position that they may not even want to be in. That you may be listening to me right now and you may be same gender loving or homosexual or lesbian and don't even understand how you got there. Or you may know exactly how you got there. I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that we love you. But I have to tell you, I have to tell you that was not, although this may be where you are. And if that's where you are, that's where you are. I can't tell you that's not how you feel. But I have to tell you that that's not God's plan. That's not what he set up. He said, let us make man. Let's make male. Let's make female. Now I want y'all to come together. I want you to be fruitful. I want you to multiply. I want you to replenish. While it may be uncomfortable to hear, while it may be uncomfortable to say, it's the truth. We have to do it God's way. Now, I'm countering some events with truth. While it is, I think that there should be some other voices of big influence that should have something to say as it relates to this. We cannot become comfortable with sin, with any sin. So while it is, a person may be a famous singer, while it is, that famous singer may feel like, in my circle of immediate friends, it's okay for me to live what it is I feel my truth is. And while it is, that truth may be leaked to the world for the world to see. My friend, it's unfortunate that it happened that way. It's unfortunate that the people that you thought you trust would blast you out in that way. But what cannot happen is something like that comes out and everybody has something to say, but nobody's saying truth in love. Nobody's saying, I love you. I appreciate the gift that's on your life, but we have to figure out how to get you from, see, they got sin too. But here's what I need for you to do. Go and sin no more. And see, and sometimes it's not even as big as we may think as it relates to where people are. Because we said that sin is sin. No matter what sin it is, sin is sin. But see, we got to get back to the basic foundation of, hey, we got to be born again. Let's look at what Jesus said to Nicodemus. I'm just going to read it because I keep alluding to it. But here in John 3, there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to Jesus by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God, for no man can do these miracles that thou doest except God be with him. Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. See, we were born into sin, shaped in iniquity. That's how we came here. You don't have to teach us how to sin. We got that down pat. We don't need no help sinning, because that's how we came. We came wrapped up in all this flesh, and no good thing dwells in this flesh. But here is the answer to that. We have to be born again. So, saying all that to say, the reason I did this, and I don't have the voice of influence as those that should be here. As the people that talk all the time, they have the voice of this generation. And all they're saying is, oh, I'm glad he came out. Oh, I'm glad that he's finally living in his truth. Our personal knowledge, acceptance of sin is not necessary for sin to be sin. Often we feel that if we don't feel like what we're doing is sin, we won't stop doing it. That's true. Our personal acknowledgement / acceptance of sin is not necessary for sin to be sin. I agree. Often we feel that if we don't feel like what we're doing is sin, we won't stop it or change. Agreed. Those voices that have way more influence, that speak to thousands at a time, don't just bring me a story. I don't want you to tell me what somebody has done. I don't care to see don't leak a video to me. I don't care. But what I do care is that you use your voice. You use your influence to speak the truth of God. This is not a popularity contest. My friends and my brothers and my sisters, friends and saints, all I'm simply saying is go and sin no more. And you may be in a place where you feel like it's not separating you from God. Well, that's when you need to hear that it's sin. And you don't know how many people, you have no idea how many people are influenced by you. And while it is, they may not fundamentally agree with what it is you're doing, but this culture has everybody wanting to do the same thing and wear the same thing and listen to the same thing and go to same places. I'm going to show you how it works. At one time, it was cool to sag your pants. Why? Because some influential person started sagging their pants. And we know what the origin of that is, but there was some church boy that started sagging his pants because he saw some influential person in his eyes, some cultural, lack of a better word, icon sagging his pants, not realizing that person sagging his pants because he sagged his pants in prison. So now you got something from a culture that you don't even understand, and you're doing it and don't even understand why. Same thing. When did everybody start wearing skinny jeans and skinny pants? When did it become cool for your pants to be above your ankle? When I was growing up, that you was flooding, doc. But now everybody is walking around with too tight pants, and it's acceptable. What we cannot do, saints and friends, is allow the spirit of homosexuality to come among us and we become desensitized. And instead of saying go and sin no more, we say, oh, it's all right. They all right. That's what we started doing with the tight pants and the sagging pants and the piercings and the tattoos. And where does the standard begin? And where does the sin end? With that being said, we love you, brother. But love without responsibility is not love at all. If I don't tell you, you may not even see this. You may not even hear about it. You're going to get a lot of pats on your back. You're going to get a lot of congratulations, and they're finally glad you're living in your truth. And you, on the other side, you're going to get people bashing you and telling you you're going to hell and you ain't right and you're dirty and you're nasty. I'm not taking either one of those positions. All I'm saying is they got sin too. But here's what I need for you to do. Go and sin no more. While it is, you find yourself attracted to a man. If that's where you are, that's where you are. But you have to recognize, and let me stop there. Let me put a pin there, because a lot of people in that community think that we're bashing, but let me stop. If you are married and you sleeping with somebody that's not your spouse, I love you. Hear me. They got sin too. But here's what I need you to do. Go and sin no more. So if you are homosexual, if you are lesbian, understand all of these sins, every single one of them separates us from God. All of them. But we cannot allow ourselves to say that I can be this way and God doesn't have a problem with it, no matter what the sin is. No, we can't allow that. All right, I think I'm gonna go now. I felt obligated to say that. It was weighty. It was weighty on me. It was heavy on me, because we can't be silent, folks. We cannot. I remember the title now. We cannot be comfortable with sin. Period. I love everybody. Love each other. Hey man, don't talk about the dude. Don't bash him. But understand, man, we love you, but go and sin no more. All right. Listen, if you're on the Urban Uplift right now, I want you to have a wonderful, prosperous, super fantastic rest of your day. Thank you all for hanging out with us this morning. We had a good day today. We're going to end the show this way. It's a throwback right here. But it just simply says, God has smiled on me. It's Mary, Mary, what God has smiled on me. I'll see you in the morning. I won't really see you, but we'll be here tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wake up.
Right here.
The Mike Brown Morning Show.
Wake up, baby, when you wake up, hit it in the morning.
Heard weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Right here on the Urban Uplift.